It's July 15th, 2020, 4:17 p.m. Eastern Time. Elon Musk tweets to his 37 million followers, "I am giving back Bitcoin to all of my followers. I am doubling all payments sent to the Bitcoin address below. You send 0.1 BTC, I send 0.2 BTC back. Only going on for 30 minutes. Within minutes, the same message appears on Barack Obama's account, then Joe Biden's, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Apple, Uber, Kanye West. For one afternoon, a single person controlled the most powerful voices on the internet. They could have started wars, crashed stock markets, swung an election. Instead, they asked for Bitcoin, and they were 17 years old. Graham Ivan Clark was 10 years old when he discovered Minecraft. For most kids, it was a game. For Clark, it was his first con. In the hardcore factions community, he scammed other players out of their in-game currency and items. He used aliases: Kirk, OpenHCF, Scrim, Feed. He had a reputation for an explosive temper and zero remorse. By 15, he had graduated from virtual scams to real ones. He joined OG Users, an underground forum for buying and selling stolen online accounts. He was banned after 4 days for scamming other scammers. But OG Users was his gateway into something far more lucrative: SIM swapping. SIM swapping is deceptively simple. You call a phone carrier, impersonate the victim, and convince the carrier to transfer their phone number to your SIM card. Once you control their number, you control their two-factor authentication. You control their accounts. You control their money. At 16, Clark SIM swapped a Seattle angel investor named Greg Bennett and stole 164 Bitcoin, worth roughly $856,000 at the time. The Secret Service investigated. They recovered 100 Bitcoin, but Clark was a minor. Prosecutors declined to charge him. And then, they gave the Bitcoin back. All of it. 300 Bitcoin. By then worth over $3 million. Graham Clark was 16 years old and a millionaire. In July 2020, Twitter had a problem it didn't know about. Over 1,000 employees had access to an internal admin tool that could do almost anything: change the email on any account, reset any password, disable two-factor authentication. Some former employees told Bloomberg they used to make a game out of looking up celebrity accounts. Worse, Twitter hadn't had a chief information security officer since December 2019. 7 months before the hack, the position sat empty. Former security staff had warned since 2015 about the risk of an insider attack. Those warnings were set aside in favor of revenue, and then there was COVID. By July 2020, Twitter's entire workforce was remote. Employees were connecting through VPNs from their homes. IT issues were constant. Help desk calls were routine. Clark saw the opportunity. He began by scraping LinkedIn, searching for Twitter employees likely to have access to internal tools. Using paid recruiter features, he obtained their cell phone numbers. Then he called them. He impersonated Twitter's IT help desk. "We're seeing VPN issues on your account," he told them. A perfectly believable story when everyone was working from home for the first time. He directed them to a website. It looked identical to Twitter's internal VPN login portal. It wasn't. As employees typed their credentials into the fake site, Clark entered those same credentials into the real one. When Twitter's system sent a two-factor authentication code, he simply asked the employee to read it to him. They did. But the first employees Clark compromised were low-level staff. They didn't have access to the admin tools he needed. So Clark used their accounts to navigate Twitter's internal network. He found internal Slack channels where instructions for accessing company systems while working remotely had been helpfully pinned. He identified which employees had admin tool access, and he called them too. With admin tool access secured, Clark began his operation in stages. In the early hours of July 15th, he started selling access to stolen Twitter accounts through Discord, operating under the handle Kirk5270. He worked with 2 accomplices, Mason Shepard, a 19-year-old from the UK going by Chewan, and Naima Fazeli, 22, from Orlando, known as Rolex. They started with what the community calls OG accounts, short, desirable usernames. They sold access for up to $2,500 each in Bitcoin. But Clark wanted more. Around 2 p.m. Eastern, screenshots of Twitter's internal admin tool appeared online. Clark was showing off his access, demonstrating that he could control any account on the platform. Then, at 2:16 p.m., the first scam tweet went out from a cryptocurrency influencer's account. Over the next 2 hours, Clark methodically hijacked some of the most followed accounts on Earth: Elon Musk, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, then the Democratic presidential nominee, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Apple, Uber, Cash App. Each account posted a variation of the same message: "Send Bitcoin to this address, and I'll send you back double." It was crude, embarrassingly simple, a scam that most internet users had seen 100 times before. And yet, within minutes, money started flowing in. Over 400 people sent Bitcoin to the 3 wallet addresses Clark was using. Transaction after transaction, appearing on the blockchain in real time. Meanwhile, Twitter's security team scrambled. They detected the breach, but couldn't stop it fast enough. Compromised accounts would post the scam, Twitter would delete it, and the accounts would post it again. At 5:45 p.m., Twitter made an unprecedented decision. They disabled the ability for every verified account on the platform to tweet. Every journalist, every politician, every corporation, every public figure. Silenced. NBC News had to create a temporary unverified account just to keep reporting. During a pandemic, during an election year, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey tweeted that night, "Tough day for us at Twitter. We all feel terrible this happened." In total, 130 accounts were targeted. 45 were used to post the scam. 36 had their direct messages accessed, including a Dutch member of parliament. 7 had their entire account data downloaded. 1 account was notably absent from the list: Donald Trump. His account had been given additional security protections after a 2017 incident. The scam collected approximately $118,000 in Bitcoin from over 400 transactions. That number could have been far higher. Coinbase alone blocked over 1,000 transactions totaling $280,000. Across all regulated cryptocurrency companies, over 6,000 transfer attempts worth $1.5 million were stopped within 40 minutes, but $118,000 was plenty to trace. The FBI, IRS Criminal Investigation, and Secret Service launched a coordinated investigation. Blockchain analytics firm Chainalysis immediately tagged the scam wallets, making every transaction visible to law enforcement and exchanges worldwide. Clark and his accomplices tried to cover their tracks. Within days, they moved nearly 10 Bitcoin to mixing services, digital tumblers designed to obscure the origin of cryptocurrency transactions. But it wasn't enough. The digital trail was everywhere. Clark had sold account access openly on Discord and the OG Users Forum. Screenshots of the admin tool had been shared publicly. Exchange accounts connected to the Bitcoin wallets led back to real identities. And Clark wasn't exactly keeping a low profile. At 17, he owned a $3 million Bitcoin fortune, drove around Tampa, and lived a lifestyle that attracted attention. On July 21st, 6 days after the hack, the FBI executed a search warrant at a residence in Northern California, targeting a juvenile who had assisted in selling account access. 10 days later, on July 31st, federal agents arrived at Clark's apartment in Northdale, Florida, early in the morning. He was booked into Hillsborough County Jail shortly after 6:30 a.m. Graham Ivan Clark, 17 years old, was charged with 30 felony counts as an adult. Mason Shepard and Nima Fazeli were arrested the same day. From hack to handcuffs, 16 days. Clark's bail was set at $725,000. The prosecutor argued that every dollar Clark possessed came from criminal activity. His defense attorney countered with a remarkable argument. "I can think of no greater indication of legitimacy than law enforcement giving the money back," referring to the $3 million in Bitcoin returned to Clark after the Bennett case. In March 2021, Clark pleaded guilty under Florida's Youthful Offender Act and was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. A fourth accomplice, Joseph O'Connor, known online as Plug Walk Joe, was arrested in Spain in July 2021, extradited to the US in 2023, and sentenced to 5 years. Clark, the mastermind, served less time than his co-conspirator. He was released in February 2023. Twitter hired a chief information security officer 2 months after the hack, filling a role that had been empty for 9 months. They deployed hardware security keys for every employee and restricted access to internal tools. But the damage went beyond Twitter. Senator Mark Warner called it a worrisome vulnerability, noting that the same access could have been exploited not just for scams, but for more disruptive purposes. Kevin Mitnick, the legendary hacker turned security consultant, called the Twitter hack a bit lame. Not because it wasn't impressive, but because Clark squandered it. They could have sold this access for millions of dollars, Mitnick said. And he was right. Clark had the keys to the most powerful communication platform on Earth. He could have impersonated world leaders during a pandemic. He could have moved markets. He could have sold access to nation-states. Instead, he ran a Bitcoin doubling scam. The oldest trick in the book. Maybe that's the real lesson of the Twitter hack. The biggest vulnerabilities aren't in code. They aren't in firewalls or encryption algorithms. They're in the person who picks up the phone when someone claims to be from IT. Every breach starts with trust.